This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the Team Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
And I am the host of the Team Martek Hour. I am Joe Martek. Isn't it nice, when you actually remember who you are?
Well, every now and again you get a little reminder.
Well,
like the recording that
like
just
the
said,
recording ahead of time
Joe
says,
Martek, that'd be you.
And you point at me and say, okay, dummy,
you.
start talking because you're on.
Yeah.
340-1590, 340-1590. This is the Team Martek Hour, and unfortunately, I am running solo temporarily.
No team.
Special guest member, Alan Love, whose nickname is Speedy, is in the parking lot. It could be here in about 10 minutes or so. Those of you that don't know Alan, he's retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin, and Alan is a cerebral palsy victim for many, many, many years, and I've nicknamed him Speedy because it takes him about a half an hour to go about 100 feet.
Yeah, but he's it's amazing how he gets around, and he won't be
held
down by his disability.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
My son, who's in a wheelchair, realized a long time ago that doing what Alan does with the crutches would take him forever. So he quit wearing the braces. He was paralyzed from the waist down, and he now, like Cliff, you know how fast Cliff moves with that hip? He keeps going in circles. But now that he's got a wheelchair, he actually makes some time. Now he's trying to make the wheelchair go in circles, and he's tangling himself up in his cord.
And the more the longer that you have to maneuver with a wheelchair, the more skill you get. I mean, some folks are really skilled with
my son. Now, this is something you never want to be near him when he's in his wheelchair going downstairs.
Yeah.
You don't want to be there. Because he does a wheelie, leans back, and go ka-kunk, 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 ka-kunk.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, you don't want to watch this because you know any minute.
You're like, I'll meet you at the bottom.
He's going to, just. When I was in Mexico with him a few weeks ago, he had two people carrying him around because he was basically on the side of a cliff is where we lived, where we were staying. But
not wheelchair accessible, huh?
Oh, I'm telling you, to get from the water up to the place we were staying was 200 steps.
Okay.
And halfway up is a little street, they call it that. There's no cars in this little, prehistoric town. But then there was like 85 or 90 steps to get up to the place we were staying. So he hired two locals to carry him. Some of them were a little fatigued by the time they made
a lot of stairs
carrying him up.
Yeah.
But the interesting part was they don't have any cars. They got donkeys and horses, but they have these four-wheel little ATVs.
Okay.
So he kind of rigged his wheelchair so they could drag him up and down these streets that don't have stairs.
So his wheelchair was basically like a trailer behind the four
with him in it.
Yeah.
Now let me tell you, while I was there,
they call those quads.
They dumped him twice.
Yeah. See, I keep calling them four-wheelers. Today they call them quads.
Is that what they call them?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's another thing you don't want to watch because the guys that are running these ATVs going uphill, they kind of go slow. But they haven't figured out exactly how to go slow downhill. And I think in Mexico, they're not allowed brakes on the ATVs,
Or maybe they just don't know how to use them.
Anyway, but they did dump them. But luckily, they dumped them in sand because they were carrying them, and the feet got kind of tangled up in the sand, and they just all three of them went down. Who was on the bottom wasn't important.
Yeah.
It was sand. But I know they said that he did dump them off the back of one of the ATVs one time, and he didn't have any marks on him.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it was an interesting 8 days, to put it mildly. 340-1590, 340-1590. Well, our special guest member, Alan Love, finally made it in. I was just talking about you before the show started, or while the show started, 10 minutes ago.
While you were on your way from the
While you were on your way from the car, and I explained how I nicknamed you Speedy.
Well, at the moment, looking around this station, I'm not sure that speedy is the appropriate word, because we've got a wheelchair this morning, we've got a man with a cane, and me with the walker. I mean, this is.
What
are you saying, Alan?
We got. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Now, Cliff.
It's radio orthopedic world.
Cliff, when he walks, because of that bad hip, he walks in circles, so he has to have the wheelchair in order to keep him going straight. But anyway, you're getting a new hip soon, aren't you?
Hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, he'll be.
Will that make him a better person, you think?
He'll walk better.
No.
I'll still be me.
You still be you. 340-1590, 340-1590. Ms. Victoria Lloyd is on her way. Remax of Stewart.
See, what it is we're a bunch of old broadcasters. You have to get used to these appliances that we bring in, because it is a station full of older broadcasters.
Well, you know what? You are getting old now that I think about it.
Yeah.
For somebody still 40, you're aging.
Oh, well, you're missing the mark by quite a bit.
Back in 2004, Greg Fasula, attorney, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, and Joe Martek, financial advisors, got together and said, let's start doing radio shows. And the concept was very simple. Each one of us had a different area of expertise, and we could answer questions for people that would call in that the other one could not answer or didn't know. And we had no clue that 15 years later we would still be doing radio shows, but here we are. And since then, we added Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, the hardest working realtor known to man, one of the top 100 agents in the entire world for Remax, because she works, returns phone calls, does what she says she's going to do. One of her favorite sayings, and I love it, is that not all realtors are created equal. Well, you can take that with every profession or every walk of life. As I look at it, I say there's 100 people in that particular field. One sits on the bottom, one sits on the top, and everybody else is somewhere in the middle. And I've always said, gee, if I can just be in the top 10% all the time, that's my goal forever. And the way you do that is with integrity. Would you say that, Counselor?
100% agree.
Because once people know that you do what you say you're going to do, and that you're available and you work and promises are kept, that counts lots and lots of points, Then, when Ms. Victoria Lloyd joined the group, we also added Mr. Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, because one went hand in glove. During the Great Recession, there was always rumors that there was no mortgage money available, which was never true. What they did, they changed the rules back to the old rules, which were you had to prove that you could make the payment.
So in other words, there really wasn't money available for those who didn't qualify.
There you go.
So they weren't really, fibbing there.
Well, what they did is they
but
cut out.
Now they were actually checking up.
Yeah. They cut out what they pretty much call the non-qualifying mortgages. I mean, if you could smoke or hazard or fog a mirror, they'd give you a loan.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden you had to literally prove, which is back to the old system, that you can make the payment. So they use two ways to do that. One is a debt ratio, income to debt, and the other one is credit score. Now, the credit score is, believe it or not as important, because things can get in a way to affect your credit score that you had, like health problems or lack of job for a period of time. But if you have a job and you can prove that you can afford to make the payment, Mike has been able to get people mortgages even when their credit scores are down in the mid-500s, which is not too high. 340-1590, 340-1590. So I'm assuming you watched the Masters.
I did, and, obviously Tiger Woods had some personal issues, which we won't get into, but you've got to give the man a tremendous amount of credit for going through all he went through with surgeries, with the time that he took to rehabilitate his golf game and to win the Masters. After all of that, I'm sure Tiger Woods is thanking God.
I'll tell you what, I will tell you, he is one of the best winners I've ever seen in my life, because a lot of people are arrogant when they win, and he's not. And he wins so graphically and so much fun that everybody in the world just loves to watch that man win.
So now do you think he'll go out on a high note?
Well, see, I doubt it, because he's only 40, see, so what happens?
The best way to do it is to go out on a high note.
If you ever notice, golfers are not like other athletes. When you turn 50, you join the seniors tour. Okay, then they basically start a whole brand new career. Like it was what was the Tex-Mex. Trini Lopez, but the Mexican golfer, he said, it's not the seniors tournament, it's the round belly tournament. You know, all the guys got old. But the key thing is, in his 40s, there are a number of professional golfers that have done very well. And if his back holds up, the man's got the discipline. Dad laid out that groundwork for him to continue to strive, and boy, Sunday was the proof. That was just a really neat thing. And I had a buddy of mine was actually at the Masters on Saturday, and he said it is the most phenomenal experience of his entire life because they have rules there that they don't have in any other tournament, like no running. You can't run. You also aren't allowed to scream and carry on.
No.
I mean, you're evicted.
You have to do that golf clap thing, that really soft golf clap thing.
They really do. Now, Victoria, you know all the Masters rules, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Because I live with the master.
well, the master of his castle.
He's a golfer.
Lenny Lloyd, who is Victoria's husband, he is a born-again golfer, to put it mildly.
Well, he played in the U.S. Mid-Amateur and the British Mid-Amateur. I mean, he's a good golfer.
But he's not so young anymore.
No, but he still plays a good game. I mean, he had like a under par the other day, 67, 68 or something. So he's still a good.
Is what's his handicap, or do you know?
He's a scratch golfer.
Scratchy?
Maybe a 1.
Yeah. See, well, would you lie for your husband?
Never. Only if I had to.
Only if you had to. 340-1590, 340-1590. So I was just talking a little bit about Tiger's win because, you know, he is the greatest winner I have ever seen in any sport because everybody wants him to win. And when he does, he's just a magnificent winner. And he also doesn't get arrogant or...
Oh, I love that he did. I would have liked to have made the $85,000 bet for $1.2 million, though.
Yeah.
14 to 1. That was great.
Yeah.
And now, you know, if I had known it, I would have gone and bet on it.
People bet on everything.
If you
I know, but I mean, it's like, where do you
Victoria.
go? I used to know
like
those.
this. Well, it's after the fact. Of course you would have known.
No. I would have bet on them. I definitely would have.
Why didn't you?
Well, I just, you know, it's
You
like
go to Vegas.
No,
They bet
No,
on
you have to have a
they bet on
bookie.
everything in
There's
Vegas.
Isn't there bookies out there?
There's bookies everywhere. So, you know, that's it.
And I was in the Bahamas at that time, and they do have those.
They got a book over there. You
they
could
do.
have bet.
I could
Why
have bet.
didn't you bet?
Yeah.
Never thought about it.
See, after the fact, somebody said 14 to 1 spread. You could have made a buck or 3.
I would have done it because I kind of felt that he was going to win.
Well, no kidding, and you didn't bet anyway.
There's something wrong with me.
Okay, there.
'Cause that's not like me.
I was leading up into the. Here comes the hardest working person known made to man. That and then she admitted.
But I am a gambler. I would gamble on that.
I see. You and I think years and years ago gamble, but I'm a donor. I just when I walk in, I should just give them the money and say, "Hey, just take
I'm going
it."
to have a good time anyway. Here's some cash.
Literally, I am a terrible.
Well, I can tell you this: the old-fashioned machines when you used to
I
play.
don't use machines.
But even those, they were good. You could win on those. I mean, I've been to Hard Rock before.
Yeah,
I mean, I bet $20 and won $10,000.
Well, see,
but you can't win on these new kind of games anymore.
They're not mechanical. They're electronic.
Yeah, they're all electronic.
And they've got them, and they've always had them where they pay out certain. They know what's being paid out.
Of course they do.
But it's
They've
worse
got so
than
many
ever.
polls and it pays. Well, I know people that are professional gamblers that work for a group that basically they watch machines and then they sit behind machines and start playing after they've gone for a few hours without any wins.
So they watch the tourists pump money in and count how many times they've been used.
I was seeing
But
this
that doesn't.
Who's
that
got
never
all
used
day
to
though
make
to
a
sit
difference.
in the casino?
But
and
that
watch
didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
If it was going to pay, it was because it was already set to pay.
Hey, by the way, has anybody here watched Jeopardy this week?
No. Oh, the guy that won 100,000 or something.
Well, the kid is a professional sports gambler, lives in Vegas. He's won more money per show than anybody ever
I saw that.
in the history of Jeopardy, and he's still winning. He's up 500,000 in 7 visits or something. It's monster money.
So he's not cheating, like somebody
don't
has
know. How
done
do you
before.
know?
How
I
can
don't
you
know.
cheat? How can you cheat at Jeopardy? I mean,
I don't
you
know.
just gotta-
Somebody said that on one of those game shows, somebody was cheating one time.
Well, this guy just died was in the news, but that was years and years ago. But hey, listen, there's not a reason in the world for somebody to cheat on Jeopardy because they bring in these genius, great memories. But this kid is unbelievable.
Wow. Well, that wouldn't do for me then.
340-1590, 340-1590. So what's new in the world of real estate?
Well, interesting. Let's talk about a couple of things that people don't bring up. And do you remember when in Port St. Lucie where they said, you had a homestead of $25,000.
Right.
Then they were going to give you an additional $25,000, which
Right.
would be 50, but not a true 50, because they take some money off because of your assesses in the bottom part that has to do with your drain fields and things. And then they said portability. Do you remember those words?
Portability, sure.
So meaning if you own a home and you go to purchase another home
In Florida.
Right. This is all in Florida.
And they're both homesteaded.
And they, didn't have, the other house did not have to be homestead that you're purchasing, but the home that you do have has to have homestead.
In order to get portability.
To get portability.
What does that mean? That your homestead just goes with you?
Well, no, this is interesting. So what happens?
It
and
wouldn't it?
Well, no,
When you
it
have
doesn't
to
go.
apply each time.
Okay. So think about this with the statement that you just made. Let's say that hypothetically you bought a house and you bought it in 1991, and you bought that house for $200,000. So as soon as you buy that home and you have homestead on it, it can never go higher than 3% of that assessed value.
And it does every year.
3% a year.
Yes,
And it does
can
every year.
Yeah, so it does.
Yeah.
But so you've got that assessed value. So, but you're building portability because you've owned it for so long. Okay, because now when they changed it, now you have portability. So then you have to find out the percentage of portability that you have on that home that you've been paying into that you can take to your new home. So let's say that home that you're buying now is $350,000. How much of that money can you take because you're more superior?
Okay, right, because now you have assessed taxes on a new dollar amount.
On the
That's
new 350.
exactly.
On today's rate.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, this is where people are getting confused, too, when they're purchasing the homes. The first thing they said is, okay, when I saw my listing, those taxes that you had were only $2,000 a year. Now they're $3,800 because there's two things that can change. It's either they're going to base it on a purchase price or an assessed value of your neighborhood, okay? So that's why their taxes change, and that's why then your portability kicks in and your 3% after that kicks
But
in.
it would be the opposite if you were buying a house where the people didn't have a homestead at all. Their taxes would be really high, and then you bringing along
Would come down
would
lower.
bring those taxes down.
So people are very confused about these things when they're going to purchase. So when they say to me, Victoria, it's only $2,000, but this other house is $3,500, I said, don't look at the tax base because it's going to change when you purchase a home.
Because of portability.
Not because of portability. Portability just gives you an extra value. For instance, we had a client and their portability was almost $17,000 on top of their $50,000 that they were able to take off of their assessed value,
Now,
their taxable value.
How is portability calculated?
Well, it's very complicated because I tried to talk to the girls, and the problem that I had is when I called the city of Port St. Lucie, most people didn't even know how to do it, and I had to talk to somebody to call me back to try to explain to me.
Yeah, they had to figure it out before they called you.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Well,
because you don't hear about it anymore. And my client said, nobody told me about it. Well, it was there. When
Would
we
it
looked
be
at his
different
tax
for
bill.
every person then, too, depending
Absolutely.
on their house?
Depending on how long you've owned the home and the
One.
value of the
Two.
home.
Yep.
It's
So
gonna
when
make
it
a
comes
big
to portability, you got to plug these two things into the equation, and it is an equation.
So let's say
Mathematical equation.
it's a less of a value home. You had a more superior home. Now you're buying a less value home. Then they have to subtract things from it. So you might
to
not get
keep
as
your
much
taxes
of
up.
that's right, to get as portability.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. But don't forget about the portability because a lot of people, because they talked about it so long ago, a lot of people said, well, what's that? And unless you check that box off when you're applying for homestead, you're not going to get portability that comes along
Got to
with
check it, right? And they're
So
not going to sit there and explain it to you at the county clerk's
Well, if
office.
they don't really know how to explain
Well,
it
the
anyway.
point is that it's not their job.
Yeah.
Their job is to answer questions, not
Yeah,
not
but
to
if they
just
come
offer
up
it.
with, they got to have somebody in the city that kind of knows what
Well,
they're
well-
doing there because
Well, they'll come back to you and say,
Well,
we'll get it figured out.
It'll be figured out on your bill.
yeah, and,
Well, as long as
how
you-
do you know if it's right or not? Because you're basing it on what they're
it's
telling
Well,
you.
there is an equation, but you'd have to, and I don't know it, and you don't know it offhand. But the bottom line is, you plug in the number of years, then the purchase prices, so the two different things, and then there's dividing and multiplying and
Yeah.
whatever to get it all figured out.
Now, are taxes included in closing? Now, how do they do?
Okay, so
does the seller have to
Remember
pay?
one thing, our property taxes in Florida that still throws people off.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I explain it 100 times to the buyers and I explain it 100 times to my sellers, they always say yes, yes, yes. But taxes in Florida are always a year behind. So when you say, but Victoria, I just paid my taxes in November and I'm closing in February and we have to prorate it to give a credit to the buyer at the time of closing for the months you lived in that home, because that wasn't for today's taxes, that was for a year ago's
Right.
taxes
Okay.
that you just paid off. So when I say that and I do an estimated seller sheet, I try to explain to them that's going to be determined because we prorate it by the month and the days.
See, the people confuse closing costs with prorations. Prorations mean if I've only used up half of the money I paid, you owe me half the money because you're inheriting it. On the other hand, if you prorate taxes, insurance, different types of things, those are not closing costs.
Yeah, which really blows my mind when somebody says, well, tell them to pay my closing costs. Well, you can't just say closing
Right.
costs because like Joe's talking about, closing costs aren't just closing costs. They're called prepaids.
Right.
It's called proration of taxes,
Right.
insurance,
Escrow?
escrow, and other costs that you incur. Closing costs are basically the costs that you are recording fees. If you're getting a mortgage, you're paying
Taxes.
points and tax. No, taxes are
On-
prepaids.
on the mortgage,
Yeah,
yeah.
those are prepaids. So when your property taxes are prorated at the time of closing. Now, let me tell people this too, and people get upset when they say, why are my closing costs so high sometimes? Because if you went out and purchased that homeowner's insurance, you're purchasing it for the closing. So you maybe paid that $2,300 for the,
Right.
then they have to prorate it to put it in your escrow. So then you're really kind of paying a year and a half up front. And then even though your taxes were paid and you're getting a credit for the months that you've lived in the home, they still have to prorate maybe 6 months of that. Sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's a whole year, depending on when
What day
you're
you're closing,
closing.
yeah.
Well, it depends on the time of the year, because if it's in the beginning of the year, they don't prorate as much. But if it's towards the end or the middle, they do 6 months. Because you don't want to be short in your escrow to pay your taxes and insurance.
Again, your lender, whether you like it or not, comes up with what they want, but they want to make sure there's enough money in the escrow account to pay taxes and insurance if that's what they are escrowing for. And they almost always collect more than what they expect the bill
Yeah.
to be.
And they'll
so
send
they're
you that-
always 6
that
months
check.
or so.
Absolutely.
they always-
and
yeah.
that's what you try to explain to people. Don't worry if there's an overage of $100 or $30, they'll send that to you. Then it'll catch up each time. That
That
have
was
it.
a thing back when years and years ago. Of course, now everybody, we never went to a closing when we did projects. When we did communities, we never did. But realtors always go now on an individual house sale because your,
I always
your
did in our
relationship's
community.
different. But back when we were doing Indian Pines or any of the rest of them, we didn't go. And I used to tell people, I said, listen, here's what happens. You're going to have a stack of paper 3 inches thick, an inch thick, whatever, to sign. And if you start going through everything, you'll never close. But here's the rule. You can't change these things at closing unless there was a difference in, let's say the date closed, they changed the prorations to a different date. They can do that instantly, prorations. But the rule, and this is what Victoria was saying, you sign a document, so does your lender sign a document that says if there's a mistake after we go through this whole thing, you agreed
To
pay,
come back.
or they agreed to give you back. And we've all seen it happen. I've never ever seen one time that it was done with any malice. I mean, it was always done according to the numbers.
Well, the other thing is that you do sign with any closing title company is that if any mistake was made in the documentation at all, you're willing to come back and re-sign or initial or
Of
make
course.
the change. So you don't get away with it. And let me give you prime examples of years and years ago. Years ago, people used to come along and say, which is illegal, we never did it, but this is what they'd say. Hey, tell them I'll give them $200,000 and I'll give them $150,000 under the table and let's sign the contract for
For 50.
$50,000 so I don't have to pay high taxes and pay all those fees. Well, they've caught up with that. So that's why they tell you we're either going to assess you on the value of the neighborhood. I don't care if you pay. I tell people I don't care if you pay $50,000. If your neighborhood is assessed at $150,000, they're going to tax you on that particular neighborhood. So people don't have to. That I think so many people were doing it illegally that's the only way they could stop it.
Minor little things that come along in the form of real estate.
Well, that's why you want a professional that's going to help you along the way. Like before I came here, we were doing a home inspection, which are so important that a lot of people don't realize, or a lot of other real estate agents say, oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to have one. It looks good, which I never say that. You know, what we see might not be what's underlining a problem with this home. And I'm not a professional in that field. You know, if I visibly see something, I always point it out. I'm that kind of girl. And I have a client of mine that says, talk to Victoria, because she points things out. And I do. Joe knows that. What did you always tell me? I'm so honest, it hurts sometimes.
Well, you know, when we used to sell real estate, when I used to years and years and years ago, I used to say, well, listen, you got to get people ready to see the things that people hide. Let them know up front what's wrong before you even show it to them, because I've never understood why everybody wants to paint it so rosy that as soon as the people walk in the door, they're disappointed.
Of course.
I like to show everything that's wrong first.
Then I think some home buyers are kind of like, they're very naive about things. Like you see these shows on TV and they go in, oh, the paint color. It's a gallon of paint.
Well,
how's the roof? You know, how's the furnace? How's the air conditioner?
Yeah, but I can't tell you how many people talk about paint colors.
Unbelievable.
How it could kill a deal quicker than anything, that they didn't like the colors inside the house.
You see, here's what
the funny thing about
Not-
paint is you don't have to keep it that color.
Yeah,
No.
but you're using. See, not everybody they don't have vision. Look at the companies.
How are you
going to
own a house,
hired
though?
to basically dress a house up to make it show well.
Right.
And they're paid.
They're stagers. They're called
What
stagers.
are they called?
Stagers.
Yeah.
They
Stagers.
stage it.
Yeah,
That's
they-
because people don't know where their furniture will go.
Well, but
I
that's
don't get
okay.
it.
Well, see, just what you
That's
might,
the fun part, right?
well, you might take for granted, or Victoria might.
I never take anything for
Some
granted.
women, and normally, it's, hey, listen, we used to always joke, you can sell the man all you want, but if the wife doesn't like it, they're not buying. You know, so you got to.
Well, I don't just sell the man. I sell both.
Well, you know what I'm talking about.
I know, but I love that. Even in the restaurant business, they always look at the man thinking they're going to get a tip and forget about the woman sitting there.
No, you better make sure the wife is happy.
You
What
better.
they say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right?
Maybe.
340-1590, 340-1590. Hey, Bulldog, give us a call. See how you're doing, my man.
I just talked to him. He's going to call in.
Good.
That might
good,
be him trying to
good,
call in
good,
now.
Good. So what's he have to say? Is he okay?
Well, he don't know. They can't find anything at all. Now they want to go deeper into his tongue and cut more out. So they didn't. And I said, "Oh, that's good news." He said, "No, now they want to even go deeper." So they couldn't. They came out.
But there's something
nothing.
wrong, but they just
Well,
can't.
it could be a non-cancerous tumor. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah.
We're praying that it's that.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, when they say they can't, they don't know, they can't figure it out, I always go find a bigger city.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
though he's with the veterans, pay to have him go to an outside doctor. He's trying. So it's pretty scary when things like that do happen, because something definitely is going on, especially in your tongue.
340-1590, 340-1590. Anybody want to call in? This is the Team Martek Hour. Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, is here. Mr. Alan Love, retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin, is here. And Joe Martek, financial advisor, is here.
And Victoria, and you were talking about real estate contracts and things like that. Well, it's a principle of contract law that most contracts have an escape clause where if there's a fraudulent situation in the contract, or say you're buying a home for $200,000 and the contract says $20,000 because the last zero was not not put
Missed
on the
by-
contract, that can be changed,
Sure.
and the courts recognize an innocent mistake like
Sure,
that,
sure.
and so you have protection there. But
I'll take that $20,000 house, Alan.
I can get you one.
Yeah, right.
I
thank
went
you.
to a closing.
Does it have walls?
Might.
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 I went to a closing and we did all the paperwork and they didn't have my check.
They couldn't find
And
it.
I was like, they were like, oh, well, it's
You
late.
mean your
late
money?
in the, yeah. It was late in the day, and we can't. And I was like, "Excuse me, you don't have the money."
It's called the funding.
And I was like, "Let me take the keys and leave. Then let's schedule this when you do have the money."
Yeah.
And the little girl who was buying the house is sitting there going, "I want to move in," you know.
And we do have that situation, and I'm going to tell you what happens.
But they
with
did
that.
work it out. They were able to get my money.
Yeah, it's the funding.
340-1590, 340-1590, and we got a caller. Mike, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio. How you doing, my man?
Very well, thank you. I'm glad everyone's in. I'm calling with a quick pop quiz for the morning. It's name the movie from the mid-'80s. Well, we're not just going to let you walk out of here. Who's we, sucker? Smith and Wesson and me? Go ahead, make my day.
Well, let's see.
I got it.
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, right?
It's Dirty Harry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dirty Harry.
How? See, we have our producer stuck in there. She just can't just hold her tongue. She
Somebody must know it. Come on now.
She said
I
Dirty
win.
Harry.
I win. Which one though? I don't know.
Wait a minute.
I don't know
Was
which,
it Dirty?
Dirty
Was it
Harry
not
movie.
Dirty Harry?
Well, he's the character, yes.
Yeah.
Ah, but the movie.
Yeah.
What's,
I don't.
What's the name of the movie?
Yeah.
His great wife was in it with him, Sandra Locke. She's the victim. It's a movie called Sudden Impact.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't know
Oh,
the names of the individual movies.
I was. Hey,
No, I
Mike.
don't know
I
one
was.
either.
I was too young to go to movies back then.
Well, at the drive-in,
Not
that was
back
one of
then.
the longest,
He's
or
lying.
longest-running movies. It was one of the top 10. The real top, though, Schwarzenegger was born for the role. That Terminator.
Yeah, well, he that, like you said, that one role was his.
Yes, he was made for that role. I'm
Absolutely.
sure. It's all about casting.
Other than that, Mike, when are you going to sell your house?
Oh, I live in a condo. I think I'm going to just stay here forever.
Okay, well, I just going
It's
to say
paid for, and it
you got
meets all
Victoria
my-
Lloyd sitting here, Remax of Stewart, and I thought you might know she might have she's got a buyer for you for $400,000 for that condo. Will you take it?
Oh man.
Hey, Mike, are you waiting with bated breath for the Mueller report tomorrow?
No, it's not going to affect me one
Yeah.
bit. What is going to affect us is this human tsunami coming at us from down south. That's what's going to change things for America. This idea that those people are going to stay in sanctuary cities or wherever they put them is ridiculous. They'll be unhappy. The language isn't spoken. They'll be cold, so they'll be coming right back to Texas and Florida. I've seen this all my life.
Well, listen, we Bulldog says he's got room up there in Palm Bay.
All right.
Anyway, no, I tell you what, it's going to be a very interesting time, to put it mildly, Mike.
Sure.
It always has been. But, I am kind of curious to see what the Dems are going to do with that Mueller report tomorrow, because they're not going to like it no matter what it says, because it's going to be missing some of the salacious parts.
Well, they've already planned out how they're gonna react, because it doesn't matter what it really says.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't it a shame that Mr. Trump can't be the guy that rebuilds Notre Dame? Who could do it better or quicker?
Yeah, boy. Interesting. Hey, Miguel, thank you so much for calling in, man.
Okay, have a good week now.
Thanks. 340-1590, 340-1590. And
You have a new mic.
we have a new mic.
Wow.
Mic number 2. Hey, Mike, it's Joe
Long-time listener, Joe.
Old-time listener. Hey, good. Okay.
Yeah, I've been listening to you for several years now, and I'm first-time caller.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I like your concept. It's very, very novel. It's very beneficial. I have a question. It's in insurance.
Fire away.
All right. Lincoln National Life, when I was 21 years old or 22 years old, I bought a $10,000 policy.
Okay.
Around when I was about 45, someone called and said that policy, if it could be turned over to $50,000, it wouldn't increase your premiums. But I said, all right, go ahead. And when I'm 80, which is I am now, they just canceled my insurance. I have zero insurance because of I don't know what. So I thought I'd call and find out from your
Well, hang on with this thought for a second. What happened is you bought the one for $10,000, and were you making monthly or annual payments for the insurance?
Yes, I was.
And then it was building up some cash value. So this guy came along and said, "Hey, this thing is worth X. We can convert the 10 to 50,000, and you'll never need to make a payment." Is that what he said?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and he lied. It was pretty simple. Now, what happens is they took that amount of cash value, and he did not buy you a one-time pay life policy. He could have done that. You may not have gotten 50,000. You might have gotten 40. You might have got a whatever. But what he did not tell you the truth, because what was available was to take the cash and buy a single premium life insurance, so you never have to make another payment.
Did he turn it into a term policy then?
Well, no, what he did, he turned it into probably another whole life policy, put that cash in the account, and the cash in that account was supposed to generate interest, and then the interest would help make the payment on the insurance, and in theory, as long as it was earning 5 or 6% or 7% interest, you'd never make a payment. But then when the interest market fell apart, and all of a sudden interest rates are down to 1 or 2 or nothing, there wasn't enough money in the thing to make the premium. So here's Mike, 80 years old. You know, Mike, you might as well live to 90 now. What the heck? Because you're not going to get any money.
I agree, but I just thought it sounds awful phony to me.
It was. The point is, you were misled, misrepresented, lied, etc. And you know, there's almost nothing, unfortunately, you can do about it, because what 40 years later or whatever the time frame is, nobody's going to say, well, tough. You know, I mean, but it's sad because who can read these insurance policies? I mean, almost nobody. But I would suggest to anybody that if you've got existing insurance contracts and you're not sure what you've got, go to not the agent that you got it from, go to any other agent. Like if you go to Dan Warren's office, whether it's car, home, life, I don't care what it is, say, hey, can somebody here take a look at this and tell me what I've got? And these are straight arrow people. And Mike, where you were taking advantage of somebody else, you might have really helped somebody right today take their existing.
That's what I'm hoping to do.
Yep. I think you just served a really nice purpose, a real nice service to help people try to I do this, Mike, all the time with people. They come up and they say they've got a, quote, index annuity. You've heard that word, index annuity?
Oh, yeah.
And the index annuity, people think they're actually in the market, but they're not. They're paid interest based on something called an index. Now, there's lots of indexes you can invest in, but when they do this index annuity, you're not literally invested in the index, but you're going to get paid interest based on something. But almost never have I met anybody that understood the whole contract. And I've sat in people's houses and said, they've asked me questions, what do you think about this? And I'll say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to call the company directly. Forget talking to an agent. We're going to call the company, talk to a salaried person, and here's the questions we're going to ask, put them on speakerphone, and when I'm all done, you're going to throw up. No different than if I had you with that life insurance contract and we sat there and I called up the company right in front of you and we'd ask the same questions, and then you'd find out you were lied to. And, you know, that's just, and it happens all the time. And it's sad, but that's, hey, I don't know what Mike, what we do is educate people the best we can, and I appreciate you calling in and helping me and you educate.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
Thanks
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
guys.
Thank
Keep
Bye.
up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Isn't
That's sad.
Isn't it sad that we could have probably a radio station down here in Florida that just talked about scams 24/7?
I think you probably get a lot of. You know what? It's not a bad idea, is it?
It's a shame.
About scams.
It really is.
You know, and it's true. When I look at people, what every industry tries to tighten up, and have people sign stuff. But quite honestly, what you can take and make 30 words out of, when the attorneys get a hold of it, they make 3,000 words out of it, and nobody can understand it. So, you know, Vic, and you go through it constantly with real estate. I mean, the people, what they have to sign to buy a piece of real estate is voluminous.
And there's no one who knows exactly what's in there except for the title company who prepared it.
Well, and I wonder if even the title company, because they get documents from the mortgage company, they get all these different documents, and they don't read every one of those documents. They just are told, here's how much money needs to be done, and here's the closing statement, right? And that's it. but nobody reads the 7,000 words that are in the mortgage.
Yeah.
340-1590, 340-1590. Bulldog, you're on the radio.
Hey, Bulldog.
Hey, Joe, speaking of a whole bunch of words, are you going to read the Mueller report?
Yeah, it's just what Alan was just saying. You know, I'm sure MSNBC, CNBC, CBS, NBC, ABC, they'll all have opinions on it. Then we'll have another opinion.
No, they're talking taxes now. They've moved on to something else.
You think they're not going to come up? I don't know. I don't think
they may
so.
not have anything, you know.
If there's not something in there,
quit kicking that dead horse.
Yeah.
Well, what I like is how much is, you know, because I heard a radio skit where they were reciting from the Mueller report, and it was like word, yeah. How many redactions are we going to get in this thing?
Well, you know, there comes the major thing. Now, I don't know.
And they're color-coded redactions, too, because certain things have to be...
Oh, no, they're all black. They're blacked out. And,
well, you know is that, you think that's how it's going to come out? They're going to have actually whole big black lines through certain parts?
Exactly.
Okay. I'd be curious to see how many lines are, or if there's a topic. At least then you have a rumor you can start, right?
Well, I just think the whole thing and the money cost to perform this was a waste of time.
Well, we all know that. That's the easy part. But it's still some entertainment.
Well, we had 2 years, though, 2.5 years of those same channels, MSNBC, CNN, of saying Russia collusion, Russia collusion.
Sure.
What they're trying to do is beat those words into our head to make us go, our president's horrible.
You know what I get a kick out of is this, you know, America is just a monster country. And I hate to tell you, Russia's a little tiny blip on the log. And they give Russia so much credit for the size of the country and their gross national.
But what country would make us more nervous?
China.
Well, but see, we've been told how wonderful China is over the past, during the Obama administration.
All I'm looking at is that there's how much power can one little tiny country have, but they give them, you know, they give Putin, and the Dems love Putin, you know, because, you know, they figure he and Trump dance to the same two-step song from the country music, right? You got that up there, don't you, Bulldog?
Well, what I'm saying is, you know, be careful, because we all could be eating chow mein if China wants to get aggressive.
You know, the problem is if China gets aggressive, the cost of Chinese food might go up. And I like Chinese food, but I don't want to pay more.
Depends on where you get it.
Yeah, well, you got to stay out of Martin County, right?
Yeah. Well, no salads in Martin County, people.
No salads?
Why? What happened?
Well, salad is the worst thing.
But you don't know. But see,
hepatitis.
But tonight's...
Well, did we find out where
No,
the
they're not
going to
tell us.
from?
They're not going to. No, they don't.
No, they won't tell us.
Tonight's 2-for-1 Gorgonzola salads at Monero's, you know. So, I mean,
oh, by the way, guys, turn in your Ben and Jerry's. There's 2 flavors.
I'm losing it.
They have nuts in them that they didn't report.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Oh.
I can eat nuts.
Well, some people have allergies to them that are rather severe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. All right, my man. Mary Beth hasn't shot you yet, right?
She is the greatest help I've ever had.
You're a lucky man. And what about your tongue? Is it still performing?
To a degree.
Okay. And they don't
just being a pain in my mouth.
Do they know what's wrong? Do they know what's wrong with you yet?
Nope.
Isn't that exciting? Don't you hate this? Not knowing is the worst thing, right?
No, you just get more needles stuck in you.
I'm so
happy.
Yeah.
I have this phobia with needles.
Well, and especially in your tongue, right?
Well, he put one on my neck to do my lymph node. That was worse, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, if you're going to do this, I'm out. Knock me out.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm agreement with you on that one.
Boy, oh boy, I don't want to see you coming at my mouth, because you'll pull back a stump, you know.
All right.
No.
All right, well, man, listen, Bulldog, thanks for calling
Thanks,
and keep
Bulldog.
us in the loop. We got another caller here waiting.
Hey, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Just one thing. Alan?
Yes.
Tomorrow was promised.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Bulldog.
340-1590. We got another caller, but I don't have a card, so I can't tell you who
because I wanted to make sure we still had her
Pat.
before
Pat
you
is-
let the cat out of the bag.
Before, but see, Pat, our producer here, she's picking on me today, because she's mad at her husband. She's going to be mad at all men,
No.
Hey, Pat,
He's
this
making
Joe
up
Martek. You're
stories.
on the radio.
I was trying to come up with some kind of connection between Tiger Woods and DJT, Donald J. Trump.
Well, there is a connection.
Yeah,
Hey, call Palm Beach County.
And I think that he thinks there's a connection because he came overcome a gorilla on his back.
Yeah, boy.
Just like Tiger did, with the. And I said the laws of decency don't matter with him. He was on opioids. He didn't know where he was. The media is on opioid island. They refuse to get off. We tried to pick him up several times. We're going to leave him there for continuing this. It's not decent, what they're doing. They continue to go on and on and on and on. It's just like a little 2-year-old who doesn't refuse. You can't touch the stove. Go ahead, touch it. We'll take your hand off, because they need somebody to cut them off now, because now it's time to get them rounded up, because this all goes back to the big O guy, and he's the one who committed the crime.
Well, my man, listen, we're not yelling, disagreeing with you. Life is a journey, is it not?
It is a journey. It is a journey. So you sit back, you just hope that, don't get mad, just mock them. Just keep mocking them so they become a joke.
There you go.
Because it really is ridiculous for them to go. If you hated the guy, you wouldn't go after somebody like this.
No, I agree.
This is like somebody holding on. Remember that lady in Vero Beach? They pulled her over and she wouldn't let go of the steering wheel because she refused to be arrested. She was some court
Yeah,
leader.
she was like a judge or something. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, they get this idea in their head that they're so untouchable that they can just, make a joke out of the whole system. Somebody needs to pay for this if we want to get our laws and decency back, because, it's. He's going to
That's
need
a
our
huge
help
task,
because
though.
he can't do everything.
I was just going to say, laws and decency back, man. You're really reaching. This is you got like.
Well, you got to reach high just to get something back.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
hey, listen, I think
the-
there's a group of us that are trying. We try on the radio. We try to educate. We try to help, but it's a very, very uphill battle. We know that.
Right. Well, I love you guys.
Thanks.
Pat.
Thanks for calling, Pat.
It does come across too. You really do try.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. And 340-1590, 340-1590, and we got Doug on the radio. Doug, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Good morning for what's left of it.
Yep.
You helped me years ago with some good advice, and thank you. But anyway, the reason I called, I predicted Donald Trump is going to win re-election by the biggest landslide in American history. And
Big league?
everyone is going to vote for him because he has helped everyone. And when they get into the voting booth, they're going to pull his lever or mark his mark. And then when they come out, they're going to swear to God they voted for the other guy, whoever it might be.
You know what? You might have a very valid point, because the reality is it was James Cargill. I call him Cargill. It's Carville that said, "Hey, it's the economy, stupid." And literally, when people are doing better, which they are, minorities are doing better. Everybody has done better under this guy than ever. So this is going to be a big part of the campaign as we get closer and closer. And Trump tried to do it somewhat last time, but I think it's going to be. I'm with you on that one, Doug.
Well, listen, here's one thing about Carvel. The first time I ever saw or heard of him, I believe, was in about 1990. And he was working for, I believe, Ken Griffey, who was, wanted to be president.
Yeah.
And I was watching C-SPAN, and they were interviewing Carvel. I never saw him before. He's very distinctive. And they asked him, who's the guy we got to watch in this election? And that's the first time I ever heard the name Bill Clinton. And Carvel said, the governor of Arkansas, he's a this and a that, and all the bad stuff that came to fruition. So Carvel, although he's, it's kind of, he's on a shaky side sometimes, he's very much, he has his ear to the rail on this.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Yeah, I agree. Hey, Doug.
That doesn't mean don't go out and vote.
Hey, I'm voting for you. I'll tell you right now, because I believe you know what you're talking about, and we all are sitting here. We have an attorney sitting over here. He's nodding his head. Very good. I had to wake him up first, though.
well, you know, a lot of attorneys are kind of a little bit on the liberal side, so he might.
Not this one.
When we get our guy Greg in here, Alan, we pick on him. But
you gotta watch out for the Trump derangement syndrome. But anyway, y'all have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Thank you, Doug. 340-1590, 340-1590. Yeah, it's. I personally am looking forward till tomorrow. I'm curious. I'm just flat curious what they're going to try to find in there that they can jump on. You know, not that they will, but they'll find something. You know,
they may act like it never happened because he won't release his tax returns.
Yep.
We want to know what he did before he was president.
Of course.
You know, I mean, they've moved on already. They have.
It's like relationships. Once you've moved on, you know, everything you did in the past is not going to be the same thing you do in the future. Is it, Joe?
It hasn't worked
for
me.
Is it, Joe?
The Mueller report has not been useful to them.
Yeah.
So there's got to be something else.
Well,
I'm surprised we're not already hearing more about Stormy Daniels. I mean.
Yeah, what, her attorney, Avenatti?
Well, see, they dropped him like a hot potato.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you what. 340-1590, 340-1590. Listen, anybody's got questions on rolling over retirement funds or doing
Speaking
anything
of the
like
man.
that, I'm the man you should call, 340-1590. Bottom line is there's all kinds of good investments today. There's insured investments that protect your money. We got people up right now. What's the S&P 500 up so far this year, Alan?
It's up about 14%.
Yeah, so I got to tell you, everybody I've had this year is happy as a clam, and when they know that their money's protected, it makes them very happy. So anybody's got questions, you call the radio station, 340-1590, whether it's real estate, Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, Mike Paulus when it comes to mortgages. In fact, you know, Mike's working on an unusual case right now. We have a woman who may want to get a reverse mortgage, but she had a stroke and she can't hardly talk, but her mind's okay.
Oh, that's okay, just because she's had a stroke, yeah.
You know, but now they're going to have a power of attorney because the interviewers, the people that do the counseling on a reverse because she can't talk, causes a bit of a problem. Anyway, it makes life more interesting when you go through these different things.
Right, correct.
And we have Dan Warren, independent insurance agent. Big word, independent. Probably the premier insurance agent on the Treasure Coast. More companies, almost 40 years worth of experience. I mean, in fact, I get a kick out of it. In our group, when we add it all up, because none of us are young except Victoria, of course, there's almost 200 years of combined experience. And if you add Alan Love, that's almost 300 years of combined experience.
Well, let's go way back into history. Something very unusual this week. Good Friday and the beginning of Passover are on the same day. So I want to wish everybody a happy Easter, happy Passover, and have a blessed holiday period.
Thank you, Alan.
And I think you're right. This almost has never happened in history, has it?
Well, it's happened before.
But it's been a while, right?
Yes.
Come on, you're our historian here. How long ago was it?
I'll let you know.
He's got to do the math.
You got to do the math.
Yeah.
340-1590, 340-1590. How much time we got, Mother? 20 seconds. Victoria, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Alan, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hey, Joe Martek is saying goodbye. Hey,
goodbye.
Producer.
Thank
say
you,
goodbye.
everybody.
Say goodbye. See you next
Bye.
week. Adios.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.